Pour myself a cup of ambition and yawn and stretch and try to come alive. Jump in the shower and the blood starts pumping. Out on the streets, the traffic starts jumping with folks like me on the job from 9 to 5. Working 9 to 5. What a way to make living.
We're back. It is our live show, Office Hours Live. Let's hear it. We have an audience here numbering in the hundreds. Can you believe it? I mean, crowded into my little office. Well, thank you very much. And Dolly Parton, thank you. You know, I'm not gonna say what I usually say, which is that I still haven't heard from Dolly. But Dolly, I haven't heard from you. And it hurts me. But listen, please share. We're gonna go for I'm gonna go for another 29 minutes. Talk about the issues, events of the day, mostly political, and then turn to your questions. I also want to remind you that we're doing this every week at this time. This is 12 noon Pacific, and it's 3 o'clock p.m. on the East Coast. And, well, you don't have to be a mathematician with advanced degrees to understand where you are in Mountain Time and Central Time. But please do join us. It's an opportunity for me to speak to you, for you to speak to me, for us to be live, and we can't normally do that on anywhere. I mean, you know, and the establishment media, don't get me started talking about the establishment media. I'm going to do that. But the topics I want to talk to you about are quickly Donald Trump and his latest flame out, and I want to really give kudos to at least one very courageous Republican leader. And then I want to talk about what the media did yesterday and the primaries today and Hillary Clinton's campaign. So we're going to do all of that, and I'll take your questions. Okay? Does that make sense? All right? You with me? Okay. First of all, we've got something that everybody knows about. Everybody is talking about what everybody knows about the kind of bigotry and the racism and the hatefulness that Donald Trump has been promoting, and it's not new, but he kind of reached a new level late last week. You all know this with regard to Judge Gonzalo Curiel of the California Ninth Circuit, a California judge who is actually a district court judge, and Judge Curiel is hearing the case against Trump University. It's a class lawsuit against Trump University. We've talked about it before, and Trump has said, and he dug a hole for himself late last week. He said that he didn't think that Judge Curiel could give him a fair trial because Judge Curiel is Mexican, when it turns out he's American. Obviously, he was born in Indiana. He has Mexican parents. But you see, the idea that you can't get a fair trial from somebody who has Mexican parents or Mexican ancestors? I mean, does that sound a little bit racist? A little bit, is that prejudice? Well, obviously it is. And Trump dug himself in deeper over the weekend. He said on Sunday, when he was asked by Jake Tapper, can you envision making the same prejudicial claim, conflict of interest, against somebody who is of Muslim descent or a Muslim? He said, yes, because of my stances. Well, you see, there's no end to that kind of racism, and it is racism. And then yesterday, Trump and certain of his surrogates started fighting back and saying that anybody who questions Trump and suggests that he's being a racist is him or herself being racist. I mean, this is a reductio ad absurdum. It's really nuts. I mean, we are at a stage in American politics I frankly never thought we would be at. And Donald Trump has taken us there. He's not the only one. We'll get to other things in a moment. But I want to just give an upbeat moment, a moment's courage award. Lindsey, I never thought that I would say this about Lindsey Graham, South Carolina senator, Republican. But here's what Lindsey Graham said in response to Donald Trump's racism. Now, if this was a fancy show, and I had, news clips, and we had a big staff, and we could put on news clips, I would do it. You just have to imagine Lindsey Graham saying this. He said, this, that is Donald Trump's statement, is the most un-American thing from a politician since Joe McCarthy. And that's Joe McCarthy. I mean, that's pretty un-American. If anyone was looking for an off-ramp, this is probably it. There'll come a time when the love of country will trump hatred of Hillary. Might as well have said hatred of Hillary or Bernie. Love of country will trump hatred of the Democrats. Well, I admire Lindsey Graham for making that explicit. But I'll tell you something else. There are people like Paul Ryan. How's that? Pretty good caricature? What do you think? Paul Ryan called Trump's statements a textbook, quote, and I'm quoting, textbook definition of a racist comment. Well, you would think, therefore, that Paul Ryan would no longer endorse Donald Trump, right? Because even Ryan says it's a textbook definition of a racist comment. But no, Paul Ryan is still endorsing Trump. He's endorsing somebody who he says is making textbook definitions of racist comments. Racist comments, he's supporting him. So there you have it. Lindsey Graham on one side and Paul Ryan on the other side. One expressing some courage and honor in terms of what statesmanship is all about, and this other person expressing nothing. Which gets us to the media calling it for Hillary Clinton last night. About 6 o'clock, I don't know how many of you were watching or reading newspapers or the internet. Suddenly, the Associated Press did a survey called the superdelegates, Democratic superdelegates. I mean, it could have done it tomorrow. It could have done it late today. It chose, curiously, yesterday to call the superdelegates. And the superdelegates, according to how they felt yesterday, they could change their minds. They're not going to vote until July 25th at the Democratic Convention. But yesterday, when the AP called them, they said, enough of them said that they were supporting Hillary Clinton, that what? What? Big deal. So the AP declared she has enough delegates now that she should be regarded as the presumptive nominee. And the New York Times then ran with that story. This is before today's primary. This is before California, big primary, before Montana, before New Mexico, before North Dakota, South Dakota, before New Jersey, before all of these final primaries. What do we have? We've got the media, the Associated Press and the New York Times backing them up, and now all over the media saying that Hillary Clinton is the presumptive candidate because why? Because there was a survey, a telephone survey taken yesterday of the superdelegates who are the Democratic insiders, asking them how they felt, what they were going to do, when they're not even going to vote until July 25th. You see the problem here, folks? A big part of this election is about people's feelings that the game is rigged, the political game, the economic game. And so when the Democratic National Committee started its campaign, its own internal campaign, a lot of us saw that as a campaign against Bernie Sanders because, look, when they didn't want to have very many debates, and they put the debates on at times that most people weren't watching, and then they obstructed Bernie Sanders at every step. And then you had the New York Times. What did the New York Times do? Well, it had a reasonably pro-Bernie Sanders column that it changed during the day to make it an anti, or a column that no longer was favorable toward Bernie Sanders. Why did that happen? Still no explanation. And it editorialized against Bernie Sanders at every opportunity. And now it comes out saying that Hillary Clinton is the presumptive nominee even before so many people in California, before anybody, it was last night, before anybody in California or the other primary states that are critically important, where there are huge, substantial numbers of pledged delegates at stake, before anybody had a chance even to vote. See, this doesn't even help Hillary Clinton. Because Hillary Clinton has got to, if she becomes the nominee, she has got to win over the Bernie supporters. And a lot of Bernie supporters are feeling as if they have been cheated or that the whole system is rigged against Bernie. Now, how do you bring them over and make them enthusiastic and even get them to the voting booth if it seems so one-sided, like the deck is stacked? And by the way, I don't believe for a minute that the Associated Press and New York Times and all of that did this accidentally yesterday, just yesterday. Why yesterday? Again, the survey could have been taken tomorrow. Why yesterday? All right. Let's have your questions. And don't forget to share, because, you know, we're doing this, and your friends and relatives and your, special others and your unspecial others, everybody could be with us now. Okay, Melissa Albin Wurzer. Melissa, did I say that right? She says, Melissa, you say, I'd like to know your thoughts on the AP's inabilities, that's the Associated Press, inability to wait just 24 hours for the votes to be counted before proclaiming Clinton the presumptive nominee. How can you expect people to fight for Clinton when they have been treated so disrespectfully by her campaign, the DNC, and the media? Well, Melissa, I just talked about that a minute ago. I think that's a big problem. It's a big problem for Hillary Clinton. 2 weeks ago, I respectfully urged the Hillary Clinton campaign and Hillary Clinton supporters not to drum Bernie Sanders out of the primaries early before a nominee was chosen. And I also, in the same op-ed and in an essay, I respectfully urged Bernie Sanders supporters to, if Hillary Clinton gets the nomination, to vote for Hillary Clinton because of the, you don't want Donald Trump. But you see the impossibility, the difficulty for anybody who is trying to urge Bernie supporters to give their votes to Hillary Clinton when you got this kind of stuff going on. Okay, Thomas Morrison, do you see last night's premature nomination of Hillary? So a lot of you are upset about this. I'm upset about this. Do you see last night's premature nomination of Hillary as another attempt to disenfranchise voters and skew the election against Bernie? Look, it's Thomas Morrison. I don't know whether this was all orchestrated and all thought out very carefully. Nancy Pelosi, the House leader of the Democrats, she, this morning, I think it was this morning, came out for Hillary. The timing, again, why is it necessary to do this on the eve or just hours before the California primary? It doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. And there's an appearance of impropriety. I don't know if there's impropriety. I don't know if this was orchestrated, but it looks fishy, doesn't it? Okay. Nick Berger. I am 78. Well, good for you, Nick. And this is the dirtiest trick I have witnessed in my entire life. Well, that's saying something, Nick, in your 78 years. I'm going to be older. And I witnessed a lot of dirty tricks. But this business of declaring her, Hillary Clinton, the presumptive nominee, the night before the big Democratic primary, talk about voter suppression. There are going to be people who decide not to vote because it's over. And those people should not decide not to vote. I urge you to urge everybody, if you are in California, New Mexico, Montana, North or South Dakota, or New Jersey, make sure you get out there and vote. Bronwyn Fryer. Wonder what you think of what Glenn Greenwald wrote. Quote, "This is the perfect symbolic ending to the Democratic Party primary. The nomination is consecrated by a media organization on a day when nobody voted." That is yesterday. Well, Bronwyn, look, I'm going to say it again in a slightly different way. I think it's outrageous. Next one, please. That's Yael, who is giving me these, and Zoe, who is also you're writing furiously down all of your questions. James Nancy, do you think Bernie will denounce the Bernie or bust trolls, or is he too swept up in his own hype? James Nang, I don't think, I've spent a lot of time with Bernie Sanders, and I don't think he's swept up in his own hype. I've known a lot of politicians. I've known a lot of presidential candidates. I've known presidents. I have worked with them. You have to have a certain degree of being swept up in your own hype to function. But Bernie Sanders doesn't strike me as the kind of person who is swept up in his own hype. And I don't think he's going to denounce Bernie or busters. Why would he do that? Bernie or busters have the right to believe what they do believe. But I think that if he finds that there is absolutely no hope at all, if he decides that he's not going to go to the convention, then he probably will be reasonable about it. But I personally believe that he should go all the way to the convention. I do. I don't think those superdelegates should call the shots, and they, by the way, will not. Can I just emphasize this again? They're not going to vote until the convention, until July 25th. So all we know about the superdelegates is what they are kind of thinking about, what they had for breakfast this morning. This is not the way you run a Democratic primary. Josh Dunn, I would appreciate you explaining that the media has always called the elections after a candidate crosses the threshold. Was it bad timing? I believe it was. But it's not a conspiracy or illegal. Josh, you're right. It's not. We don't know that it's certainly not illegal. It's not a conspiracy. I don't think so. I don't have any evidence that it was orchestrated. They have done this in the past. But here's the difference. Here's the difference. To do it on the night before a big primary, where you have the leading candidates, in fact, Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, or whoever the two leading candidates are in the primary, running neck and neck. And when you have a huge issue of whether the system is rigged by the insiders, by the establishment, when you got all that going, for the media to do this is not just irresponsible, it is reckless. Billy Moss. Bernie will suspend his campaign Tuesday and get behind Hillary Rodham Clinton. Don't believe me, just watch. The only caveat is he may wait until Wednesday morning. Billy, I don't know. I have absolutely no knowledge of what he will do. I personally believe that his message about the overwhelming dominance of big money in our politics and in our economy is a very important message. I want him to have as much of an audience for that message. I want him to push the Democratic Party as much and as far as possible toward severing the link between big money and politics. Nancy Langweiser, can the Democratic Party be saved, or is it doomed to become the party of moderate Republicans? Nancy, you were asking a question that hurts me personally because, I was there in the Clinton administration. I worked for 5 years trying to do what, and advise Bill Clinton and trying to push the administration in the direction I thought was wise. I had a lot of battles in that administration. It's not secret with people like Bob Rubin. And I worried that Bill Clinton's triangulation, his attempt to move to the right, his compromising with Republicans on a lot of issues like welfare reform or like the crime bill, or not investing as much as I think we could have and should have invested in education or infrastructure. I worried that was. Some people say, well, he reinvented the Democratic Party. Well, he made it, in my mind, like a moderate Republican Party. So your question hurts me. It brings up a lot of bad memories. Mimi Lauzo, I would like to hear why people hate Hillary. I just don't get it. Why don't people hate someone truly crazy and despicable like Trump? Well, I'm with you, Mimi. I mean, Trump is crazy and despicable, and I think that I'm not a big hater. You know, I don't think we should go around hating people. I mean, we should make sure that they're not voted in, and I think that all our responsibility, all of us have a responsibility to make sure Donald Trump and his hatefulness, and his bigotry, and his xenophobia, and his misogyny don't get into the White House. That is a huge responsibility on every one of us. I don't think we ought to be hating Hillary Clinton. You know, Hillary Clinton I've known since she was, you know this, I've shared this with you, since she was 19 years old. That's almost 50 years. You know, there are not that many people I know for 50 years. I mean, how many people do you know for 50 years? Maybe nobody. So in my view, not only do I not hate her, but I think that Hillary Clinton is basically a good person. Now, when I say that, I know several of you, in fact, I can see you, some of you are writing, oh, no, she's not. Look, I know her. She's basically a good person. I think she will be, if she is the nominee and if she gets the presidency, I think she will be responsible. Is she too close to big money and to Wall Street? In my view, a little bit too close. I think she needs to, if she gets the nomination, she needs to make that disconnection much clearer, and she has got to pledge and make it very, very clear to voters she's not going to staff her White House or her cabinet with Wall Streeters. Nicholas Eichenauer. Hi, Robert. Hi, Nicholas. Will you be going to Philly for the convention? Nicholas, I'm not planning to. I've been to so many conventions. They are really boring, really. And they are not edifying. I mean, there's nothing about a convention. Occasionally there's a speech. I was at the 2004 convention. I think that was the convention, wasn't it, where Barack Obama gave his very, very powerful speech. And I saw that, and it was not even in prime time. I was there. I was as impressed and thrilled by that speech as I think most people there were. But don't go to a convention just to be able to say you were at a convention. Marcus Yellington. What effect, if any, will Gary Johnson have on the election? I wonder if Johnson would be able to take enough votes away from Trump to make it worth it to have a third-party run on the left. Now, you're talking about Gary Johnson, who is going to be putatively the Republican light, or the Republican alternative that Bill Kristol has put into effect, or the alternative, the libertarian. The libertarian. I don't think he's going to have any effect whatsoever. Phil Hilton, you argue that allowing Hillary Rodham Clinton to lose the general election will not teach the DNC to stop rigging the process. If that's true, then what can be done? Phil, I think the way we teach the DNC a lesson is to all of us become far, far more engaged and active in our local and state Democratic parties, and to make sure that the DNC actually reflects what we want. We've got to just not complain. Stop whining. We've got to organize ourselves and mobilize ourselves and take over the DNC and make sure that the DNC reflects the will of Democrats. Or else, I mean, the last straw, we form a third party. Carolyn Hennis, big money in policy in elections is the single biggest reason a huge block of Democrats cannot support Clinton. I don't understand why she refuses to address it. Well, Carolyn, I think she's going to have to address it. If Hillary Clinton is the nominee, Hillary Clinton, if she wants Bernie Sanders voters to actually not sit it out, but actually vote for her, I don't think she can simply rely on the fear of Donald Trump. I think she really does have to make it clear and support major reforms that sever the link, as I said before, between big money and politics. Megan Duvall. Robert. Yes, Megan. Do you ever foresee, some people used to call me Mr. Secretary. I mean, not that I'm standing on ceremony. Robert, do you ever foresee the U.S. turning back toward the virtuous cycle that you talked about in inequality for all? it feels like we're headed further away from it all the time. Megan, in my kind of down moments when I'm feeling blue, and I'm feeling angry, more angry today than I am feeling blue, but sometimes when I'm feeling blue, yeah, it feels like we're still in the kind of negative cycle that I talk about in Inequality for All, and we've got to get back to a virtuous cycle in terms of our economy and our democracy. One more. This is it. This is the final. This is from Rob Gardner. Robert, it has been... Robert, thank you. You know, I feel like I know you guys. Robert, it has been great following your lead for this amazing primary. I get inspired watching your filmed lecture in Wheeler Auditorium, one of my first classrooms back when tuition was free. You know, Berkeley, I just want to say something. Berkeley is an extraordinary university. Tuition is no longer free, but it was almost free in the late 1960s, and we were making huge progress. Goes back to the comment before about virtuous cycle. I want to get back, and you want to get back to the point where this country was making progress. We were moving toward single payer. We were moving toward tuition-free higher education in public institutions. We were moving toward a minimum wage that was half the median wage. We had that for years. We were moving toward a society where big money did not have nearly the clout that big money now has. And regardless of what happens in this primary and in this election, you have got to, and I promise I will, continue to fight. All right? And don't forget to vote. Today, vote. If you are in California, Montana, New Mexico, North Dakota, South Dakota, or New Jersey, please vote. And I want to thank Zoe Beck and Yael Bridge. I'll see you next week. We're back every week at this time for another Office Hours Live. Bye.
Yay!